All right. Good morning, everyone. So good to see you all. Happy Tuesday. Um, Here is our do now for today. If you haven't already turned on your video, go ahead and turn on your video so I can see your beautiful faces. Quite a few of you that still need to turn on your video. Today's do now is two parts. The first question is, what's your current favorite song or artist? And that question I want you to answer in your chat. So type your answer for that question in the chat box so I can see. And then your second question, what is the difference between H and K when we talk about absolute value functions? That is a review from what we went over yesterday. So don't type this answer into the chat, just hang on to it and I'll call on someone to share their answer. So I'll give everyone 3 minutes. Type in your answer for the first question in the chat. The second question, I'll call on someone to answer out loud. We got Alec Benjamin, Miles Davis, Kendrick. Cool. Broadway Freestyle, NF. You guys are so cool. I don't know half of these artists. Kodak Black, I have heard of him. Future, yes. Oh my gosh, the Hamilton soundtrack, incredible. I hope you watched the video on Disney Plus. That took up most of my summer. Extension. I don't even know how to pronounce that. NBA Youngboy. Okay, classic. Party Next Door. I haven't heard of that. We'll have to check it out. Lil Wayne, J. Cole. Great. Love those. I'll type mine in. JID. Okay. Haven't heard of that. Got a lot of homework to do tonight when I go back. For those of you that just joined, we are answering the first do now question in the chat, and we're thinking about the second. All right, 30 more seconds to get your answers in the chat. What's your favorite song right now or artist that you've been listening to? All right, we got a couple more responses in the chat. Awesome, awesome. Keep it coming. We got about 15 seconds. 15 seconds. All right, that is time. So thank you all for that. So that was the first question, which was, what's your favorite artist that you're listening to right now? Your second question, what is the difference between H and K when we talk about absolute value functions? What's the difference between H and K when we talk about absolute value functions? All right, Jaden, could you go ahead and answer this question for me?
H is horizontal shift and K is vertical shift.
Beautiful. Yep, H is horizontal shift and K is vertical shift. Perfect. That was the most important thing that I wanted you all to remember from yesterday. So good, you remembered. All right, let's go ahead and do good things. So remember, good things is just where you share a good thing that happened to you recently. So my good thing was yesterday I got to go to my yoga class, which I hadn't been to in a while, and it was really relaxing and nice. So it was cool. All right. Today's good things. Let's start with Chris Riddle. What's your good thing?
Uh, I got my permit.
You got your permit. Oh, very exciting. Have you been driving a lot?
I wouldn't say a lot, just a little bit.
A little bit. Cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Let's go to Christian Woodson. What's your good thing?
The Y gym open back up.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. What do you do at the Y?
I just go play basketball or go work out.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for sharing. And then Clervins, you're up. What's your good thing?
I'm still at home.
Still at home. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our notes for today. So if you remember from yesterday, we didn't get a chance to finish all of our notes, so we're just going to pick back up where we left off. Our agenda for today is to do our notes, and then we'll go over how to find your assignment for Big Ideas Math and how to submit all of that. And then we will have extra time at the end of the class period. So we will either have time to work on the assignment, or we can play a Kahoot. I'll take a poll at the end after we finish Big Ideas Math to see what you all want to do. And then we'll go from there. Any questions? Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and share my DotCam screen, and we'll go over the notes. Just as a reminder, I do like to call on you all to share out loud as we go through, so make sure that you are paying attention, because I would love to hear from you. All right, so here's where we left off yesterday. We left off in example 2. And as we said, as Jaden said today, the most important thing that I want you, maybe I guess the most important thing would be for me to share my screen. That would be helpful. The most important thing that I want you all to remember from yesterday is that when you look at an equation, you can identify a number that's your H and a number that's your K. And H tells you how far to the left or right you're moving, and K tells you how far up and down you're going. So for example 2, yesterday we plugged in our X values and got Y values. So that's how we got our table of values. And that's what resulted in our green graph. I'm going to go ahead and plot the parent function. So remember, the parent function is the original graph that starts, our vertex is at 0, 0, and it's f of x equals absolute value of x. So there are no extra numbers there. It's just basic, just the x in absolute value. So that's what we always call the parent function, and that's what we always compare our transformations and translations to. So I'm going to go ahead. You don't have to copy this down on your notes, but I just want you to see. In red, I'm going to graph the original parent function. The parent function always starts at 0, 0. It always starts at 0, 0. And then it forms a V shape. So I'm just copying this down from example 1. That's where I got all these points from. And then I'm going to take my straight edge and connect those together. Like so. So when I ask you to describe the transformation, I'm always asking you to describe how I transformed from the parent function to the new function. So I'm asking you, what changed? How did I get from the red graph to the green graph? How did I move from the red graph to the green graph? So I'm going to go ahead and call on someone to answer that question. Describe the transformation. What happened for me to get from the red graph to the green graph? What do you think, Elise?
We added 2 to the absolute value.
You did add 2 to the absolute value, but think about it in terms of like left, right, up, down. How did I go from red to green?
I don't know.
Did I move to the left or right? Or did I move up or down to go from this graph, the red one, to the green one? What changed? So Elise, do you see how we started at 0, 0? And now we moved. Did we move up? Did we move down? Did we move left? Did we move right?
Up
Up. And then how many did we move up by?
2.
2, exactly. So that's all you got to do for the transformation. You got to tell me what direction you moved and how far you moved. So in this case, it's up 2. Good job. So we're always asking, how did you move from the original parent function to the new function? And then the vertex. So what is the vertex of the green function or the green graph? So again, the vertex is the point of the V. So I'm going to go ahead and call on someone for this one. What would be my vertex for this function? What do you think, Gavin?
2.
Remember, your 2 is part of it, but remember your vertex is a point. So where does that 2 go for that? Or
0, 2.
0, 2, exactly. Good job. 0, 2. All right, so for example 2 and example 1, we created a table of values, we plugged in the X's to get our Y's, and then we graphed. But there's actually an easier way to do it. You don't have to create a table of values every single time you're trying to do absolute value functions. There's a shortcut, and that shortcut is just looking at the equation and figuring out your H and K. So for the next few examples, we're going to try and graph it without using a table of values and just using the equation. So go ahead and flip the page. We're going to go to example 3, and we're going to try that method. So for example 3, we want to graph the following function, f of x equals the absolute value of x minus 3 plus 2. So your first step is you want to describe the transformation. So before we even do that, I always like to identify my h and my k. So an easy way to remember is your h is always going to be the number that's inside of the absolute value, and your k is always going to be the number that's outside of the absolute value. So when we're asked to describe the transformation like Elise did in the last problem, you're asked to say, how is my graph moving? Is it moving up? Is it moving down? Is it moving left? Is it moving right? And before, we used to write out a table of values and then graph it, but you don't necessarily need to do that. All you need to do is look at the H and the K values. So like Jaden said earlier, the H value tells us if we're moving left or right, and that's all dependent on the sign. So remember, H is opposite. So if you see a minus sign, that means you're going to the right by 3 units. So minus for H means right. And then your K is plus 2. So for K, if you see a plus, that means you're going up 2 units. And your vertex, you can always find your vertex based on the H and K. So the H is going to be opposite. So since it was -3, when you put it in the vertex, it's going to turn to +3. And your K is going to be 2, +2. Any questions about how we figured out that information?
So if it's negative, it becomes positive, but if it's positive, it stays the same.
It's dependent on the H and K value. So H is always opposite. So since it's a -3, it's going to change to a +3. If it was a +3, it would be a -3. But the K just stays the same. So if the K is positive, it stays positive. If the K is negative, it stays negative. It's only H that's the opposite. Good question.
So how do we know it's going right?
If it's a minus, it's going to the right. So if we look back from before, if your H is plus, it goes to the left. If it is minus, it goes to the right. Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and graph this. So you always want to start with the vertex. So we know the vertex is 3, 2. So you go to 3 on the X, 2 on the Y. That's your vertex. And I'm going to go ahead and graph the right side first. So for the right side, you're going to go up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1. That'll give you 3 points right there. And then you're going to do the same on the left side. So you're going to go up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1. Until you get 5 points on your graph. They should form a V. And you're going to use your straight edge and connect the points together. And that's that. Questions on how we graph example 3? All right, you don't have to do the next part, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to graph the original parent function. So remember, the original parent function always starts at 0, 0. That's the vertex. And then I'm going to do the right side, so up 1, over 1, and the left side, up 2, over 2. And then connect those together. And you'll notice that to get from the red graph to the green graph, we went right 3. So if I start at my vertex, I went right 1, 2, 3, and then up 2 to get my new point. So again, you don't need a table of values to graph. All you need is to know the H and the K. That gives you the vertex, and that should be enough information for you to graph it. Any questions before we go on to example 4? All right, let's go to example 4 then. Graph the following function, f of x equals absolute value of x plus 2 minus 3. I'm going to go ahead and call on someone for this next question. So what's my h value and what's my k value? What's my h value and what's my k value? What do you think, Anam?
The h value is 2 and the k is -3.
Perfect. All right, go ahead and describe the transformation for me. Go ahead and describe the transformation for me, Amani.
Ain't it right 2 down 3?
I like the down 3 part, but remember that plus for h means that you're going to the left. So h is always opposite. So if you see a plus for the h, that means you're going to the left. But I like the down 3. Great. Thank you for sharing. And what's my vertex going to be? What's my vertex going to be, Tyler?
You say what?
What's the vertex going to be?
I don't know.
So remember, your vertex is always your h comma k. So it's going to be an ordered pair. So what's the h?
Is it -2 or +2?
So you always want to make sure it's opposite. So since it was plus 2 in the equation, it's going to be -2. And then what's your k?
Okay.
So your vertex is -2, 3. So let's go ahead and plot that. So you're going to go to -2. Oh, hang on. You said 3, Tyler? K is always the same. It's not the opposite. So since it was -3 over here, it has to be a -3 here too.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's only H that's the opposite. K stays the same. So we've got -3. Sorry, was there a question?
Why is it opposite?
For H?
Yeah.
Because of the way the formula is written, because in the original formula, you see a minus sign. In math, when you see a minus sign in front, we treat it as the opposite. Whereas you see for the K, you see a plus sign. That's why K is treated as is.
So I always flip the H.
Yeah, you always want to flip the H, but the K just stays the same.
Okay.
Good question. All right, so once you've got your vertex down, you're going to go ahead and plot the right side. So the right side of the V, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. That will give you 3 points right there. The right side of the V, or sorry, the left side of the V, excuse me, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So you should have 5 points right there. And you're going to go ahead and connect the points together. And that is your new function. I'm going to go ahead and graph the parent function in red. You don't necessarily need to do that on your paper, but I just want you to see how we transformed. So start with the vertex at 0, 0, and then do the right side and the left side and connect the points. And I always like to look at the vertex as the point of comparison. So my original parent function vertex was at 0, 0, but to get the new vertex, we went left 2 and down 3. Any questions about that? All right, slight typo. This says example 6, but it's actually example 5, so you can go ahead and change that. Example 5, describe the transformation of the parent function f of x equals x if the new function is absolute value of x plus 5 plus 2. So this time we're not graphing it, we're just describing the transformation. So you still need to go through the same steps. You still need to figure out what's your h and what's your k. So I'm going to go ahead and call on someone for that. What's my h and what's my k? Conrad.
Your H is +5, and your K is +2.
Okay. How am I going to go ahead and describe the transformation for me then? Describe the transformation for me, Jordan. Jordan, go ahead and describe the transformation.
Left 5 and up 2.
Beautiful. Yep. Plus in the 8 means you're going left 5 up 2. Any questions about example 5? All right. Change that 7 to a 6. We're working on example 6. Write an equation for the parent function f of x equals absolute value of x that has been translated 7 units to the right and 4 units down. 7 units to the right, 4 units down. This time we're working backwards. So they gave us the transformation, but now we have to write the equation. So we're working backwards. Same idea though, you're still gonna identify your h and k, and then you're gonna plug it into the equation. So I'm gonna go and call on someone for this next question. What's my h and what's my k? Ida.
Is 7 your H and 4 is your K?
Perfect. Yep. 7 H, 4 is your K. When you write your equation, to differentiate from the original function, it was f of x. So just choose a different letter. A lot of times your textbook will choose G. It doesn't matter what letter you choose, just choose something different than F. Equals. Then you're going to write your absolute value of x. Since you have an h value, it's 7 to the right. Right means minus, and then 7. And that goes inside the absolute value. And then 4 units down. So if you're going down, that means your k value is a minus 4. And that's your final answer. A question that often comes up is how do you deal with it if you don't have an h value or a k value? So for that, I'm going to go back to example 2. So if you go to example 2, you'll notice that you only have a k value. There's nothing inside of the absolute value. There's no h value. So for an example like number 2, your h is actually equal to 0. So if you don't see a value for an h or a k, it's going to be 0. And you'll notice that, for example, too, you'll notice we didn't move left or right. That's because we didn't have an H value. We only moved up 2. And you'll also notice that in the vertex, because we didn't have an H value, we just put a 0 in for that, and we just had a K value, so that was 2. So sometimes that will happen where you'll only have an H or you'll only have a K. If you're missing something, you're just gonna put in a 0 for that value. Any questions about that? Okay. If there are no questions, we're gonna go ahead and log into Big Ideas Math. So everyone should have gotten a login yesterday. If you weren't here yesterday in class, then I created a login for you. So just let me know if that applies to you, and I'll get you that login. But for the rest of you, I'll put in the website that you're supposed to go to. Give me just a second. All right, this is going to be your best friend in terms of this class because this is where all of your assignments will be. So I'll go ahead and pop that in the chat. So go ahead and follow this login. That will take you to Big Ideas Math. And I'll share my screen as well. And then you're going to use the same login that you created yesterday. So remember, it's your first initial, last name, and then whatever number that you had. And then your password is capital NCHS Math1, and you should be able to log in. Does anyone need help logging in? Once you log in, you should see a page that looks like this. Okay, once you click this page, if you click assignments, that will be all of the assignments that you have for the day. So usually you only have 1 assignment per day. Today's assignment is 1.1. I already started mine, that's why it says resume, but yours should just say start. But you're gonna click that little pencil and that will start the assignment for you. Does anyone need help getting to this point right here?
Wait, where do you go again?
What do you do after you log in?
Yeah, where do you go?
Do you see the tab that says assignments at the top?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and click that.
Okay, I see it.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, so then we're gonna click start. Mine says resume, but yours will say start. And here's your questions. So let me pretend that I haven't done this yet. Okay. All right, so let's work on number 13 together. We'll call it a freebie. So you've got select the graph of the function and its parent function, g of x equals absolute value of x minus 5. So you're looking at all these options. You know that g is the translation. So the red graph is the translation and the blue graph is the parent function. You know that because the blue graph always starts at 0, 0. So g of x equals x minus 5. Go ahead, I'm gonna call on someone to help me out with this question. Go ahead and describe the transformation for me. Tell me how my graph is moving. Describe the transformation for me. Rasalam.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, describe the transformation for me. So if the equation is absolute value of x minus 5, what's the transformation?
Right 5.
Right 5. So you're gonna look for the graph where the red has moved to the right 5. So you'll notice that that is going to be this option right here. So you click that. And the graph of G is a translation 5 units to the right of the parent absolute value function. So that's how you fill in all the blanks. You can always check your answer by clicking this bottom button at the bottom right. It says check answer. So if you click that, it will tell you if you got everything right. So we're so smart, we got everything right. But let's say that I got confused and I accidentally thought that that minus meant that I was going to the left. So let's say that I did this instead. Then when I click check answer, it will tell me with those red X's which parts that I got wrong. So I need to go back and fix those. Just as a reminder, your homework assignments are graded on accuracy. So just because you completed it and turned it in doesn't mean you're going to get your full 10 points. It's dependent on what % you get right. So really make sure that you're using that check answer button because it will tell you if you're right or wrong before you submit it. If you need help, you can click that need help button on the top. And the nice thing about the online textbook is that it'll give you little videos that you can watch to help you out. So try that out. For some students, it helps. Either way, you click the next button to go on to the next question. There's only 4 questions for this particular problem. Note about number 14, they put the K value in front, but it's still the K value, so 4 is the K value. Let's say you go all the way to the end and you're done. You'll notice that there is no button to submit on Big Ideas Math on the main screen. What you have to do to submit is you have to go back up to where it says your name, click the drop-down menu, and there's a couple options. If you're not ready to submit yet, if you just want to save and come back to it, just hit save or save and exit. If you are ready to submit, you need to hit the submit button, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to submit? And you can say submit, and you're good to go.
I have another question.
Yeah, what's up?
Is this the only one we do? Because it was 2 of them. So we only do this one, or we do both of them? Or is it the same thing?
There was another one? Okay.
Yeah, I saw.
I'll go back and delete the one that is not good. Let me actually do that real quick so there's no confusion. I might have accidentally put a practice one. Thank you for letting me know. I don't want you to do extra, so let's just get that fixed real quick. The assignments. Sorry, y'all, give me just a sec. Okay. All right, everyone can refresh. Sorry, I forgot to delete it from your period. Go ahead and refresh and it should show you the correct one now. There should only be one. Anyone seeing more than one still? Okay. Another quick feature I want to show you is if you go to the top left, it will tell you what you still have to complete. So you can use that. Just make sure that you hit submit before when you're done, because if you don't hit submit, then I don't get the notification that you're good to go. So if you've just saved it, it doesn't turn it in. You have to make sure you hit submit. Any questions about using the Big Ideas Math platform? Okay, so we have about 10 more minutes left of class. So we have 2 options, and I'm going to have you vote in the chat. The first option is I'll give you these 10 minutes to work on your assignment and answer any questions that you might have. The second option is we'll play a Kahoot based on absolute value. So first option, assignment. Second option, Kahoot. Go ahead and just place in the chat what you'd rather do.
Wait, I have a question about the homework. What does it mean by the domain and the range?
So remember when we talked about the parent function? Although I think, Gavin, you might be on the old assignment that I deleted. Go ahead and exit out of the Big Ideas Math and then refresh it, because I think I deleted the process domain and range. But remember, domain was when you're talking about how far to the left and how far to the right your graph goes, and range is when you're talking about how high and how low it goes.
Okay.
But yeah, try logging out and logging back in, because I just deleted that extra assignment. You shouldn't have that question anymore. Any other questions? Okay, looks like most of you want time to work on your assignment, so that's fine. You have until 10:05 to work on your assignment, and then if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and I'll answer them.
On 14,
Mhm.
I don't understand the graph part. So isn't 4?
So is that 4? Is that your H value or your K value?
Isn't that the H value?
Did
Or no, that's the K value, and then
It's the K value. Yep. So how is that going to shift your graph?
it's gonna go down 4.
So is that 4, is it positive or is it negative?
It says 4 plus, and so it wouldn't just be positive.
That
So,
means it's going up, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I flip it.
That's going up.
No, it's So okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thanks.
I'm confused about the where it says parent function. Like that's the only part I'm confused about.
For which problem?
14.
14. Okay. So it's asking you, so the parent function is the original function, which has a vertex at 0, 0. So it's basically saying, select the graph of the function and its parent function. So the blue is the parent function and the red is the transformation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now the Big Ideas Math is not working for me. It like says I don't have access.
Who was that? Yeah.
Me, Gavin.
So you tried logging out and then you tried logging back in.
Yeah. It like says I don't have a course now.
Do you mind sharing your screen with me so I can see what you're seeing?
Yeah, hold on, let me log back in.
Can we leave before done?
Yeah, if you're done, you can go ahead and leave.
Do I just hit share?
Yeah, just hit share screen, then we'll see what you're seeing.
Like, do you see it?
Yeah, okay, so go up to Algebra 2 BTS 2015. Try the 2019. Okay, go back. Go down to your name and say add class. Actually, before you do that, let me just double check if you're using the right username and password. So I'm just gonna type in, I'm gonna send you a chat, Gavin, with your username and just confirm if that's the right one that you've been using. Is that what you've been using?
No.
Okay, so try logging out and try logging back in with that username and password.
Okay.
You can stop your share.
How do I on 47?
Mhm.
How do I graph the function on it? I don't understand how it only does a line.
Yeah, okay, great. So let me see if I can share this. Okay. All right, so let me reset it. Okay, so if you're trying to graph f of x is equal to absolute value of x minus 4, where'd you put your vertex?
4.
4, okay. So that will put that 1 point, right?
Yeah.
And then if you want to go to the right side, just go up 1 over 1, and that will give you that first part of your line. But to get the left side, click the vertex again. So click 4, 0 again, but then go to the left, up 1 over 1, and that should give you the second part.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Before we leave, your homework tonight is just make sure you turn in this assignment, submit it by tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. And then print out your notes for Wednesday. So those will be up by 8 p.m. tonight. So make sure you just print those out for tomorrow. You're welcome to log out if you want. I'll stick around for about 5 minutes. If you have questions, I can answer them. But if not, I'll see you tomorrow.
Would translate or shifting something over make it not equivalent?
What do you mean by shifting something over?
So like there's the two functions
Yeah.
and one is shifted.
Yeah, if they're not shifted in the same exact way, they're not equivalent. So for the graphs to be for the graphs to be equivalent, they would have to be lying right on top of each other. They have to be the same graph.
Okay. Thanks.